Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Europa Rediviva. First of all, I'd like to tell my Romanian-speaking audience that I have joined Substack. You can find me under the same handle, Europa Rediviva. And I've decided to put in writing some of the things that I say here as well, to put them in writing in Romanian for a Romanian audience. Now that I've moved abroad, I feel a bit more confident in expressing myself in Romanian as well, even though I'm not advocating for a particular political position. I'm not advocating for any particular political group, just making observations on the rapid demise of Romanian statehood. And in the first two posts that I've made, I draw a link between the current accelerated liquidation of Romanian sovereignty and the roots of the Romanianness, the condition of being Romanian. Essentially, Romanians appeared in the Middle Ages, and this is something that Romanian historians do not insist upon for obvious reasons. But the same word Romanian, back then Român, designated two things. Some would say that they're two distinct things. Most Romanians believe that they're two distinct realities, even though I would argue that they identify one and the same reality, and the term meant one and the same thing, even though that thing had a social and an ethnic side to it. So the term Român, used all throughout the, late Middle Ages, meaning all the way to the 19th century, meant Romanian, but it also meant indentured laborer, serf. And the principality, the medieval principality that gathered around it various other provinces to create the modern Romanian state, was called the land of the Româns. But that had two connotations. So on the one hand, you could say land of the Romanians, but on the other hand, you could also say land of the indentured serfs, because the majority of the population there were indentured serfs. So the majority of the population was made up of peasants, of course, being the Middle Ages, and those peasants were indentured. They could not move around. They were forced to stay in one place and to work for the boyar. And the only people who refused to do that were the haiduks, the people who went into the forest, ran into the forest, and became outlaws. But the socio-economic reality of the Romanian principalities in the Middle Ages, meaning all the way to the 19th century, all the way to the middle of the 19th century, is that of a large peasant population, a huge peasant population that is indentured, that has no rights whatsoever. It is tied in these feudal laws, in this feudal system, and they are essentially unschooled and forced to work on a regular basis for the boyar. And as a consequence of this, we could say that the principalities had as a majority both an ethnic and a social dimension to being, as I said, Român. And as a consequence of this, there is an identity between the ethnicity of the people and the occupation of the people, so being indentured laborers. And I try to argue that this has been a constant in the evolution of the Romanian society, the fact that the state did not belong to the people and it did not work in the favor of the people, and the people, the ethnic Romanians, did not rule it. This is also something that can be seen from the fact that the official language was Slavonic, so essentially Bulgarian, all the way to the 18th century. And my argument is that the current dissolution of the Romanian state is a consequence of the lack of national consciousness, which had no time to form. So there was not enough time to create a national consciousness, because Romania entered modernity very late, and even from the moment when it entered, it was still run by this aristocratic feudal class, which became capitalist. So essentially, after the Treaty of Adrianople, so this is Edirne in Turkey now, the boyars, the landlords that ruled over the peasants, became capitalist owners of their lands. In feudalism, boyars did not exactly have property. They had the peasantry beholden to them, and they could force the peasantry to work on the fields of the boyar. But the peasants, even though they were not owners of their plots, they were not bound to these capitalist contractual agreements. So they were not renters either. It was basically the system that was established after the barbarian invasions that ended the antiquity, and when a class of warlords essentially established itself over the population, the rural population that they found. And this class of warlords became the feudal masters, but they were in no way the owners in a modern sense of the lands. They were the masters of the lands, but they did not own the said areas of land in the capitalist sense. But the Treaty of Adrianople allowed them to do just that. So it enabled the boyars to become the capitalist owners of essentially the entire country, and therefore the condition of the Romanians, of the peasants, worsened even more, because because from not owning anything but being in these type of feudal arrangements in which the boyar was also not the owner, and the lands were somehow negotiated upon, they became part of this new system called capitalism, in which they owned nothing and they were supposed to be happy, like Klaus Schwab wanted from us in the World Economic Forum. So this also happened in the United Kingdom with the enclosure movement. You can read all about it, how the impoverished masses of the city dwellers that were portrayed by Dickens came into existence. They were the former peasants that started being completely impoverished as a result of the end of feudalism and the advent of the Industrial Revolution. So their labor was replaced by machines, and they did not own land. They were tolerated in these feudal arrangements, but they were not landowners. So then they just had to migrate to the cities and become slum dwellers. Essentially, the condition of the Romanians was similar to that of the British peasantry, in the sense that the aristocracy was foreign. Okay, in England it was French-speaking, in Romania it was Bulgarian-speaking, but still, it was foreign. And it never really emancipated itself until it got political rights very late in the essentially 20th century, with universal suffrage and with the advent of social democracy. So in the first half of the 20th century, they were still rioting for minimal labor laws, and they were still subject to these abuses by the state, shot at during their strikes and stuff like this. And the only time when Romanians were really sovereign was in communism. This is what I'm arguing. And because it lasted really a short amount of time, then Romanians did not really get used to this status, and this is why they're letting it erode so fast. And what we are witnessing now is the complete dissolution of the Romanian state. Every day brings in a new chapter of this dissolution. And for example, yesterday came out the news that various agencies of the Romanian government lost access to their databases, very important agencies, like land registry, for example. So now no more land exchanges or property exchanges, real estate exchanges can be made. No transfer of property can be made because access to those databases is no longer is no longer possible for these state agencies. And what is more, the data is on sale on the dark web. And this happens to various governmental agencies. And now the story goes that there were some murky contracts handed over to various politically connected companies, and one of them, coincidentally, guess what, is the company that was also doing political campaigning. It was doing political PR, political targeting, and it did that for the last two presidents of Romania, for Klaus Iohannis and for Nicu Șordan. And while I was working for Nicu Șordan, before he ran for mayor of Bucharest, I also met with these people, and they were very murky. They were working for him, but they were also working for his rival at the same time, for the Social Democratic candidate. And they were bragging that they are doing these tenders for e-governance solutions in Africa. They were not only very politically connected; they were very well connected with the secret services and with various high-profile investors that had connections with the secret services. One is in exile in Serbia because he crossed the Romanian intelligence service in the wrong way. But the other ones are free roaming, and several of them have businesses in Africa, have even mining rights. They bought mines in various sub-Saharan African countries. And the guy who was running the political campaign for both sides of the political spectrum that were confronting each other back then used to be a bodyguard in Africa for these Romanian oligarchs, essentially. And these are the people that both did the digitalization of Romania and who brought into power with these e-campaign programs both Klaus Iohannis and Nicu Șordan. So both of the last two Romanian presidents were brought into power with the digital campaigns orchestrated by the very companies that also won the tenders for the Romanian governmental cloud. They were bragging that they were doing that with Somalia, but apparently they, once they got their candidate into office, they managed to do that for the Somalia of Europe as well, which is Romania. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about on my Substack, the complete dissolution of the Romanian state. There is nothing to prevent it because the mentality of the people right now is that they need to offer as many gifts abroad as possible in order to be recognized as legitimate. And here I'm not speaking only about the people in government. You might think that they are just a comprador elite and they try to buy their goodwill from Brussels and from the United States through these government procurement contracts. But it's not only that, it's in the nature of the people now. So the majority of the Romanians are very adamant in robbing the state coffers to the highest possible level in order to offer government contracts to German arms manufacturers, to American deliverers of invisible fabrics, because America nowadays sells all sorts of technologies which do not exist and which will never exist. It has abstractized the government procurement that it requires from its colonies. It no longer claims to offer any kind of existing goods and services, but it is claiming money for things that will never be built and that even theoretically cannot exist. Like, for example, some AI cloud computing data center, which will be built somewhere in Romania. So and I'm trying to analyze the roots of the mentality of the Romanian people, because politically this cannot be changed. Once you say that you want to advocate for national interest, you get immediately labeled as a Russian agent and as an anti-Western force. And the most prominent of these people, unfortunately, got assassinated. So there was one sociologist at the University of Craiova. I've spoken about him before. Florin Păsătoiu is his name. If you speak Romanian and you look him up, you'll see that he was not only the most prominent person to be labeled a Putin puppet, because he did very impressive things. He created a partnership between the University of Craiova, where he taught, and the MGIMO, the Moscow University of International Affairs. He was also present at the Sochi and St. Petersburg summits, so he was the most multipolar Romanian academic that existed. And when he was assassinated, he was working on an alternative national security strategy for Romania. And he kept on being labeled and labeled Putinist agent of Russia and so on and so forth. And in 2003, an accident happened, unexplained accident. He was found dead next to his bicycle with his broken spine. But no trace of a car having hit him. The bicycle was intact, and it was ruled an accident. So the official police report says that he fell off his bicycle. Now, I've cycled quite a lot in my life, and I've never heard of the possibility of breaking your spine while falling off your bicycle without any car hitting you, nothing. So the official story is that he fell off his bicycle, and he broke his spine, completely broke it. Okay. I wrote this on Facebook that I consider it a suspect death because he was such a high-profile academic. He was also the one that brought John Mearsheimer to Romania. So if you've seen my channel, a couple of months ago I posted this video where I'm asking John Mearsheimer a question about the prospect of a European Common Army. And I'm there at this conference in 2018 when John Mearsheimer was brought to Romania by this guy, by Florin Păsătoiu. And Florin Păsătoiu wanted to bring him again. And he didn't manage to because he died. And he died in an accident, just like this terrorist organization that operates on the territory of Romania told me that they do. They stage accidents on the Mirotvorets method. They explicitly lay this out also in their terrorist manifesto, that they target what they perceive to be agents of Russia, and they kill them through the Mirotvorets method, through staging accidents, especially road accidents. So after I wrote this on Facebook, I was contacted by his mother and by some other relatives from his family, and they told me that they insisted that the police carry out an investigation for suspect death, but the police refused to. And people from the Criminal Investigations Bureau essentially discarded all the evidence that was there. So when they came, they just took off all his clothing, put it in a bag, gave it to their relatives, and sent his body off to the morgue without conducting any sort of investigations on his body whatsoever. So they essentially went there to clear up the tracks, to clear up any evidence. And yeah, very sad story. His mother was not exactly proud of what his son did. So even though I consider him the most prominent agent for multipolarity in Romania, that was and that is, because nobody is doing anything to the scale that he was doing. He was also advocating nuclear cooperation with China in the field of civil reactors, because Romania tried to build some more reactors in its nuclear power plant with Chinese technology, and the Americans told it not to do so and to buy these small modular reactors from the United States. And he was also advocating against that, and he was also labeled a Chinese agent. So yeah, essentially the Romanian media functions in this way. that it labels anybody with a bit of common sense to be an agent of Russia, China, and Iran. And there's this terrorist organization that I spoke about that's been operating for 2 years now, more than 2 years. Well, for 2 years they have this terrorist manifesto online, and they have compiled this database of people, this hit list that they said they would kill, and on which my name is also on. And yeah, the majority of the Romanian population supports this, voted for this, and is very hysterical about any kind of common sense regarding Romania's standing, regarding Romania's foreign policy. There is a majority that actually wants to be used, wants to be instrumentalized in this way that I've spoken about. So there's not much I can do. I can just observe, but given the fact that I'm a citizen of Romania, and given the fact that I still, well, it's the country I grew up in, I still have some sort of allegiance to it, even though I decided to move abroad, I feel that it is somehow my responsibility to not shut up about it, and at least try to document what's going on, and try to be a sort of chronicler of these events, even though I'm not capable of influencing them in any meaningful way, and I'm very aware of that. So if you also speak Romanian and you'd like some Romanian language content, follow me on Substack. It's the same handle as here, Europa Rediviva, and the blog is titled Întoarcerea la România. So going back to being indentured serfs, what was the condition of the Romanians before they had the state, and which is the condition to which they are rapidly going back to, unfortunately. So this is what I wanted to tell you today. If you like what I do, like, share, subscribe, join my Telegram channel, and join my Substack. So until next time, take care. Bye.